You're with Clement Manyatela
on 702.
Let's Walk the Talk, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app,
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang, happy Monday. Welcome to the Clement Manyatela Show. It's wonderful to have you with us here on 702. I hope you're well this morning. I hope you had a great weekend and I hope that you're ready for the week ahead. We start with the 702 open line. You can call us on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. Do we or do we not have a budget? The clock is ticking against that Wednesday deadline at the 12th of March. That's the date that's fast approaching, and there's no deal that has been reached, it appears. There's still an impasse, and it will be disastrous for Wednesday to come, and the GNU still hasn't found each other, the GNU parties, that is. Another postponement wouldn't be desirable, and I think Cabinet probably will give the final approval today. But weekend reports suggest that the finance minister told Cabinet a choice must be made between a VAT increase and taking away the SRD grant or reducing it. What do you think is the best option between the two, if really this is what the finance minister is considering? Because yes, raising VAT could generate revenue to maintain the SRD grant and fund other essential services, but it would also increase the cost of living for South Africans already struggling financially. On the other hand, cutting that social relief or distress, that social relief of distress grant, the 350 Rand, that would also impact over 8 million recipients. And that potentially exacerbates poverty and social unrest. There are consequences to that. You can drop the 350 SRD grant. That's going to save you about 40 billion Rand or so. But is that a viable option? Seeing how it's been valuable for most South Africans in our society. I know people who receive the 350 grant. It goes a long way. As little as it is. This is a grant that was introduced as a way of mitigating the effects of the coronavirus, which resulted in widespread job losses. So if you were between the ages of, was it 18 and 60, and you were not contributing to the UIF and didn't have any financial support, you qualified for this grant. It's helping millions of people. And as I said, as little as it is. What does government do now? That is the question. What do you think is the best option between these two? Do you increase VAT slightly? Because that seems to be the compromise. But the DA says we're still not going to support any kind of VAT increase. Or do you cut the SRD grant to save about 40 billion Rand or so? Let me know your thoughts. 011-883-0702. We received some sad news this weekend as well about the passing of South African playwright, actor, director Athol Fugard. What a giant. He had a career spanning more than 6 decades. He was acclaimed not just here at home but abroad for plays that expose the inhumanity and injustices of apartheid. This is the man who, when it wasn't fashionable, when the mixing of the races was forbidden, this is the man who collaborated across the racial divide and founded even several theater companies alongside black actors. So condolences to his family, to his loved ones, and may his soul rest in peace. And if you know what your favorite work of his was, why don't you give us a call? Let's pay tribute to Athol Fugard. His body of work includes, he's done so much. There were plays like No Good Friday, The Blood Knot, what was that other one? The Master Harold, and The Boys, and who can forget Sizwe Bansi is dead. 011-883-0702. You can give us a call on that if you want to chat about Athol Fugard.
Clement Maniatella. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856
92.7
and 106 FM.
By the way, what do you think should be the approach of President Cyril Ramaphosa regarding the U.S.? You may have seen that Donald Trump posted that South Africa is being terrible. And this is a quote, right? South Africa is being terrible. Plus, to long-time farmers in the country, they are confiscating land and farms, and much worse than that. A bad place to be right now. And we are stopping all federal funding. To go a step further, any farmer with family from South Africa seeking to flee that country for reasons of safety will be invited into the United States of America with a rapid pathway to citizenship. So this is what Trump had put up on his social media platforms. And I mean, he's doubling down, right? I don't think he's even interested to have a conversation with our officials. And the question I'm asking you this morning is, what should President Cyril Ramaphosa do? Must he still send envoys to the U.S.? Because it doesn't look like Trump is willing to listen. It doesn't look like the officials from the Trump administration are willing to even give the U.S. some audience. And I know the government is going to deny that. But that's what we're hearing. Even from U.S. reports in the U.S. have suggested that too. Which is why now you've got forget AfriForum. Now you've got even the Democratic Alliance that was able to go to the U.S. to meet with what they call, either it's senior advisors or senior officials in the Trump administration. Because also there's this temptation from these rival political parties in this country to use this crisis to score cheap political points, right? It's so narrow-minded and it serves self-interest, because if you're really serious about wanting to send a united message, right, a message of unity, if you're part of the GNU, then you allow the GNU to send its own delegation, which may include your own leaders. So what do you think should be the approach of President Cyril Ramaphosa? Must he just force his officials there? Because for some reason, they're not giving us time. I spoke to Ronald Lamola last week, and he said, well, there are no people in the State Department responsible for the Africa portfolio in the U.S. So we are waiting for people we can meet with. And yet AfriForum is willing to go to the U.S. and claim to meet with senior officials from the Trump presidency. They don't want to mention who they are. The DA can go to the U.S. and still come back and still have met with officials from the Trump presidency. What is it with our officials? And I suspect it's because they don't want to talk. They're not interested to hear us. So do you force your way through, or should the president just accept that? And what does accepting it actually mean? Here's what the former president, Thabo Mbeki, has suggested. He was speaking to the SABC this weekend.
I must respect the fact that the government you have in the United States now is a democratically elected government of the people of the United States. I think we've got to respect that you're not just dealing with anybody who's saying whatever. You are dealing with a properly elected representative of the people of the U.S. As you know, we've got a particular historical relationship with that population. It was very much part of with us during the course of that struggle. So I think what's happening demands that we should re-engage properly. I'm quite certain that if we engage properly with this government of the U.S. led by President Trump, elected by the people of the United States, and discuss all whatever matters concern them about South Africa, it will be possible to sort those matters out.
Yeah, what do you think? 011-883-072, WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Maniatella
On 702.
Good morning, Clement. Happy Monday to you and your team. Regarding the budget and all those jazz, this government has to first start in-house. They are quick to talk about unemployment, the inequality and all that, but they are one of the highest earners in South Africa for actually doing nothing. So let's start there. They should actually take a salary cut, take away all your deputies. We do not need deputies. We do not need deputies. So let's start there first, and let's see how it goes. Thanks.
Yeah, remember though, I'm asking about the two options. I think we've already had that conversation of we don't have a money problem. We've got a spending problem, not a revenue problem. We've looked also at where other possible cuts could be. The question I'm asking you this morning is, it looks like there are two scenarios, right? Two scenarios that are confronting government this morning, that have been confronting government in their negotiations. And that is the two options of either you increase VAT, even if it's by 0.5%. Either you increase VAT or you take away the SRD grant. That's a difficult decision to make. And I'm asking, what is the best option there? And none of them are best, of course. But what's the less consequential option? Koketso, you are calling us from Johannesburg. What are your thoughts? Hi.
Yes, morning, Clement. I just wanted to say that, I think this moment in time, presents a golden opportunity for us to even look at the type of system of governance we have, right? So we know that typically we've been having national, provincial, and then, local government. So perhaps maybe this is actually a good opportunity now to look at passing constitutional amendments that can almost incorporate provincial and local together. Therein, they're being able to cut, like a lot of the officials. Because if you look at a lot of the officials at provincial and local level, that's like duplicated. So just by almost like mixing up those people or amalgamating that thing, you are able to cut a lot of the officials that are there, right? And I agree with your previous call about deputy ministers. I think even things like doing a moratorium on overseas travel is also a good idea. And then also saying that government will only pay for travel that is done via SAA. If you don't, fly via SAA and you fly another airline, then you will have to carry the cost of your own travel. If they boost SAA in that way, that money basically in the end goes back to the fiscal. Yeah. Because the government is the biggest shareholder.
Okay. Yeah, Koketso, but what about the two options, right? Because I think all of this we've already ventilated before. But right now there's two things confronting. I think all of us agree that there needs to be reform, and we've spoken about the ministerial handbook that needs to be looked at. But right now there are two options. There are 2 days left. Government says VAT increase or I take away the SRD grant.
But Clement, I think they're giving us an impossible option, and I honestly think that citizens, with every contempt, should reject the VAT increase, because there is so much fat to be trimmed within the state that just by redirecting money and cutting it from there, you are able to do that. Stop the banqueting, stop the endless endowers, stop the endless workshops, and redirect that money to where it's needed, to frontline services of hiring doctors, hiring nurses, hiring police officers. So they really need to trim the fat now, and they need to not, stop using us as citizens to pay extra VAT, because ultimately that's going to kill business and it's going to impact on citizens negatively.
Yeah, Koketso in Johannesburg. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Guys, remember, there's 2 days left. There are 2 days left. Us talking about other things that government needs to look at in the future, we've had that conversation. We can have it again in the future. I'm asking this morning that there are two things that are confronting government. And I agree. Koketso is right when she says that's an impossible option to be given, because either is bad. But that's what government is putting on the table. You take, or maybe what? Do you reduce the SRD grant? I mean, 350 is already so small. What do you reduce that to? So, yeah, you could argue that's an impossible choice to make. Or maybe you think that take away SRD, or rather increase VAT by 0.5%. The reality is the man who is supposed to finalize this budget and present it seems to be giving these two options. And I'm asking you, what could be best? I've asked the DA the same question. We'll hear from them just after the news at 10 o'clock. Kustas, what do you think? Good morning.
Clement, thank you very much. First and foremost, the SRD grant, there was never a budget for it, Clement. So the government is blackmailing the other GNU partners by saying VAT or SRD grant. Now, we cannot attach emotions when it comes to budget. So that SRD grant, you got to view 370, guys, let's be honest, it's nothing. It has not alleviated poverty. Instead, it has opened up taps of corruption. And they have not spoken about that, by the way. So in short, I'm suggesting you have to get rid of the SRD grant. Neither increase the VAT to both of them. The government of the Republic does not deserve any increase whatsoever. So I'm of the view then, Clement, to say that no increase on VAT, remove the grant simply because it is not making a difference. There was never a budget. It was never a budget for it, Clement. If I don't have a budget today, why do I spend money that I don't have? And they're blackmailing them because they expect them to think emotionally. So the other GNU partners are now being blackmailed to think emotionally or shame about Superguy. South Africans were fine without the 370, Clement. They didn't die before the 370. They're not going to die even if it is removed. They will survive. My point I'm trying to highlight is this. Let's not put emotion on 370. Let's deal with the budget. There's 40 billion there that was never budgeted. It was taken from education. It was taken from health. It was taken from military, right? So let's take that money and put it back where it belongs. And guess what happened? We balance the books. And the South African government must stop borrowing, Clement. Enough of this borrowing. Let's live within our means. That means tough decisions.
Yeah. Kustas, you're right. There was no budget to it, but I don't think you're right. So first of all, we have spoken about the corruption in SRD. The aided auditor general actually picked it up. There was a time when I interviewed her about people who work for government, senior government officials who were busy receiving an SRD grant. So I think we've ventilated that. We've spoken about the corruption that's existed even through the dispensation of this grant. But two, I want to say that it's not true that this has not made a difference. In fact, I'm going to find that report. I do remember there was a report, must have been released by one of the NGOs, I don't remember, but that looked at the impact of the SRD grant on macroeconomies, but also on families as well. I know people, Kustas, who receive 350 Rand. I've seen the difference that it makes for them. And I've asked them, does this even make a difference? Trust me, 350 may be so little to you. It is not as little to someone who all they need is to buy impumpu. What is it, King? Maize meal. That's all they need. They need to buy maize meal. They need to buy a bag of beans. They need to buy fish oil. That's something that's going to sustain them for 2 weeks. Without that 350, they wouldn't know where they're going to get their next meal. So we need to be sensitive to that too. I absolutely agree that there are other options we need to look at. If it were up to me, I wouldn't increase VAT. I also wouldn't even reduce or take away the SRD grant. But unfortunately, that's a reality that's confronting us now. So are you saying SRD, take it out because even though it makes a difference to some people, that difference is not as significant?
Yeah. Clement, my final point to you is this. There was no reason for the government to dangle the SRD grant versus VAT to start with.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they should have removed that thing. The GNU partners should have removed it. No, don't come with the SRD grant. Why don't you come with something else? Why don't you come with that 400 billion rand that you have given to IPPs as a guarantee? Pull that out because those are private businesses. They're not struggling. So in suggesting is that the mere fact that they're dangling the VAT, they're dangling the SRD grant, they're blackmailing us as people, and they don't want to think out of the box. And yet there's so many suggestions that have been given on the show and by other South Africans where the government can do better. So this dangling of these two carrots is blackmailing the other partners. I'll be disappointed if the GNU partners agrees to a VAT increase. By the way, DA look like it's about to increase it to 0.75%. On that planet, but let's see how it's happening.
Yeah, let's see, Kustas. I did record an interview with the DA. We'll play it just after the news at 10 o'clock. And they agree with you that how do you bring these two options before us? These are not options that are viable. We've given you our options. Why don't you consider those? Make concessions yourself. Philip, you calling from Pretoria. You want to weigh in on what should our approach be to the U.S.?
Yes, Clement. Basically, these things are intertwined with budget deficit and all these things, the options. But I'm saying, in terms of handling the potential budget deficit that is caused by PEPFAR funding being removed, probably South Africa needs, in that delegation that will be sent to the U.S. elected government, a very strong and powerful technical diplomat that should be there.
You think Donald will respect President Mbeki?
I'm saying President Beki is the best suitable candidate to lead the South African government delegation sent by our president, because he has matured on diplomacy. He's smart as a person, and he's got nothing to lose. But he's a person who will best be able to tell the elected president of the U.S. to say, you are elected. You know, President Trump wants to be acknowledged. And President Thabo Mbeki is the best person that could be able to encourage that person to be positive, to have that self-image recognized and fully. Then you can deal with the mundane issues. What are the issues? And then these issues of land or harassing white people, maybe he's going to be the person who this time will be able to woo President Trump to visit South Africa on a state visit.
I doubt it. Look, Philip, I agree with you that he's measured. This is a voice of reason. That's a man with experience in diplomacy. But I doubt it. Also, this clip, and I'll play a bit of it, but when Thabo Mbeki was speaking this weekend to the SABC, he also said, we must never let anybody try and want to interfere with how we run things here. And we must never let anybody try to tell us that transformation is not the way to go. The minute Thabo Mbeki makes those views, I mean, Trump is probably going to treat him like how he treated Zelensky. They're going to chase him out of the White House.
Remember, President Ramaphosa has got nothing to lose. He's in his second term already. So whether they were beef before with President Mbeki, let bygones be bygones. This is about the country and the well-being of South Africans, especially those are pressed with disease and stuff. So we are failing to balance the national budget to be able to fund welfare services currently. We are in that conundrum. So any little rent that we're going to find, whether from the U.S. and everywhere, to plug on the health side, it will relieve Minister Godongwana in terms of funding. Because if we don't recover that money, which runs into billions, then Godongwana will have to give Motsoaledi another money from the very short string budget that is. And
Motsoaledi has already said that there's just not no money to give NGOs, every rand and cent that U.S. president or the U.S. was giving them. So it's not like they can say to NGOs, you used to receive 10 million from the U.S., here's 10 million. Our government just doesn't have that money. Aaron Motsoaledi, the Minister of Health, has already confirmed that. I get where Philip is going, but I'm asking, do you guys really think that Thabo Mbeki would somehow play a critical role in getting the U.S. administration to really listen and take us seriously? I agree he's measured. I agree he's the voice of reason. He's got experience. But we're also dealing here with an administration that is wild. We're dealing here with a president who doesn't care about facts. We're dealing with a president who runs his government there via Twitter. He consistently, even after being corrected, wants to talk about his own facts that are manufactured together with AfriForum. I don't think even Thabo Mbeki somehow would be able to get that man to understand that. What do you think? It's 9:32.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Maniatela
on 702.
It's 22 minutes before 10 o'clock.
I must respect the fact that the government you have in the United States now is a democratically elected government of the people of the United States. I think we've got to respect that. That you're not just dealing with anybody who's saying whatever, you are dealing with a properly elected representative of the people of the U.S. As you know, we've got a particular historical relationship with that population. It was very much part of with us during the course of that struggle. So I think what's happening demands that we should re-engage properly. I'm quite certain that if we engage properly with this government of the U.S. led by President Trump, elected by the people of the United States, and discuss all whatever matters concern them about South Africa, it will be possible to sort those matters out. It's also very important that we talk to our Afrikaner colleagues here to say if there are problems in this country, they will never be solved in Washington. Never, ever. Those problems will be solved here. And one of the things that we must avoid at all costs is to communicate a message to South Africans that it's you can't carry out this process of the transformation of the country. Because to transform, then you offend one section of the population. And therefore don't transform. You can't have that. There must be transformation. There must be a removal of the legacy of colonialism and apartheid. That must be acted upon.
And that's exactly what Trump doesn't want. Trump doesn't want this country to deal with the legacy of apartheid and colonialism. Trump doesn't want us to transform. And Thabo Mbeki says, never make the mistake of stopping transformation because you offend a particular group in society. Well, there was a particular group in society that was offended. They ran to Trump, and Trump responded to them. So when we re-engage, what form does that take? Because it looks like when you look at how Trump, the president of the US, is dealing with this, he's not willing to listen to us. He's not willing to even understand that this government is implementing these transformation policies because they're trying to redress the injustices of the past. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear any of that. So even if you send a Thabo Mbeki to the US to lead that delegation, what does that even mean? Because he must still explain to them what our laws look like. And doesn't look like they're willing to listen to us, but they're quick to meet with the DA. They're quick to meet with AfriForum. And we still haven't found a meeting with them. Larry, in fact, let's start with Sika, who is in Palm Ridge. What are your thoughts on this? Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Sure, man. Go ahead.
I'm fine. I'm completely negating the question of sending a South African delegation to America to go and beg that man who doesn't want to listen to us. Even if he was willing to listen to us, it is a fact that in 1902, when the Anglo War ended in South Africa, the type of transformation that they had was to make sure that they resuscitate the African economy. The very same action that put us or led us to the very same situation that we are right now as South African people, more especially blacks. We cannot get a green light from Trump in order to conduct our African, South African orientated way of dealing with the past. That I don't agree with. I know that we may say AGOA and PEPFAR impact negatively on us. There is no way that they cannot. We are at war. Everyone in South Africa, more especially the black people, must know that in a war, there are casualties. Not only South Africa is suffering the consequences of the stopping of AGOA. Yeah. Even the Americans, they want us.
America's closest allies, they are neighbors. Mexico and Canada are also facing the same from Donald Trump.
Why now Canada? Well, if we are better off, why the neighbor Canada is suffering the same fate as we are seeing at Lemon? So let us stop relying on the West. Let us learn to stand on our own. I know it's going to take us long because we have been telling the ANC since from 1994 that the road that we are taking is not going to lead us anywhere.
Yeah.
Than to be beggars in this country. Cannot.
Yeah, Siga in Palm Ridge. Thank you so much for your call. Usiga Anisia. Sika. Usiga is in... Sigale Kek. Wasn't there a song like that? Sigale, was it Chomi? Was it Chomi and Athama Fukad? Sigale Kek. Sigale Kek. Siga, thank you for your call. Naledi in Rustenburg. Good morning.
Morning, Clement. Naledi from Rustenburg. In fact, my concern is we're dealing with Trump. It's not to say Trump doesn't understand what's got problems. Trump is a president, but he's a business person. He's not a politician. So he's taking the business first and taking the economy of his country first and his citizens first. That is why when I give you this, you must give it back to me with interest. Now, we're looking on that, we're missing something. If we say we're not going to talk to Mr. Trump, who are we going to send? We'd rather take President Mbeki because he's more on a business-minded side and go with the panel which is going to America. Let them go and talk to Mr. Trump. It's not to say it's Trump who's giving the decision alone. Trump is just a leader, the rubber stamp. There are people down there who are missing a point that there are other people down there who are saying, what's that. Same like us. If our previous government was doing this, this not to say it's our president. It's people who are underneath the president. So let's stop this thing of party politics and petty politics, because those people in parliament, they are aiming a salad. What is going to happen if the companies which are hiring people, they close their American companies? Who's going to give them work?
Yeah, got it. Now, Lady, thank you so much for your thoughts. Yeah, this is interesting that a lot of you really seriously are considering the former president Thabo Mbeki as someone who can be part of or lead the delegation. Of course, as a former head of state, nothing stops President Cyril Ramaphosa from appointing him as an envoy. I mean, as that Siga said, we are in war. We really are. And you need someone with weight, probably. But my question is, does Donald Trump even care about Thabo Mbeki as a former president? As one of our revered stalwarts? Or is he going to see Thabo Mbeki as coming from the same political party that he is against, or same political party he is accusing of persecuting the Afrikaner population for over the last 30 years here? So I don't know. It makes sense if Thabo Mbeki is going to negotiate with someone who's rational, someone who's willing to sit down and deal with issues diplomatically. That makes sense. But that's not what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with someone whose mind is made up about this country. Someone whose mind is made up about the history of this country and the policies that are being taken in this country to fix the injustices of the past. He doesn't want that. So you could very well send the holiest man on earth. I don't think Trump will still be able to hear. Let's go to some WhatsApps.
Clement, good morning, my brother. This is Michael from Zakani. As uncomfortable as it's going to be to most South African families, let's rather increase the VAT and, see how it's going to go. And those people who are getting 350s, I know they're also going to feel a pinch, including those who are getting social grants and other things. But if we increase the VAT, then more money becomes available. And then I'm sure we can increase a little bit of the 350s or 370s that these people are getting, and also those who are getting social grants. Because at the end of the day, a decision must be made. And both decisions are uncomfortable. Both decisions are going to have serious ramifications. But what do we do in this case? Because we've just got those two decisions, and a decision must be made. It's a pity that, corruption has brought this country to what it is now.
Clement, people need to realize that cutting government officials is such a splash in the ocean that it's a tiny, tiny portion of the country's expenditures. Saving 200 million or 300 million is not going to solve our problems. However, the question as to do we cut the grants or do we increase VAT, neither is a great option. It's going to affect people one way or another. Either you're going to reduce the grant and the most vulnerable in the country are going to be affected, or you're going to increase VAT and most vulnerable people in the country and pushing more people into vulnerability. So there is no right answer. All that will happen is that the ANC will be punished because they allowed this to happen. This was avoidable. The biggest expense in this country is corruption and wasteful expenditure. Some people have got wealthy from that, but the majority of the country has got poorer.
Hi, Clement. I'm listening to your program, and the two issues are very difficult to decide. But for me, if you continue with the SRD grant, and push VAT up. Then put the people to work. The people that are getting the SRD grant, they can be put to work. I don't understand why this free money needs to be given. I'm sure a lot of people, if you look at the age, these are not pensioners. These are people that could be able-bodied, that could actually be put to work. There's stuff that needs to happen in this country. If you look at the pollution, if you look at so much that needs to happen. So put the people to work, and then we'll see a better state. Thanks.
Yeah, but that, and I hear that, absolutely agree with it. But that's not something you do over 2 months. That's not something you do over a couple of months. That's more long term. What is a short term? Right now, there's a 60 billion rand in additional revenue that's needed. Where does that come from now? There are these short term, immediate options we can go with, and getting people employed is not a short term goal. It's a medium to long term, because there are certain reforms you have to implement. You have to create a business environment. You have to grow the economy so that jobs can be created. You don't just create jobs. But also, remember what I was saying to Kustas earlier, the social relief of distress grant has been a lifeline for many South Africans, especially the vulnerable groups like your caregivers or the unemployed. And it has had a significant impact on households. It's been primarily used for food and electricity, and that plays a vital role in poverty reduction and income inequality. And there are a number of studies that indicate that this SRD grant has reduced poverty among the poorest households and decreased household income inequality. So there are people out there who use, as little as this may be in all of our eyes, and even to them, this 350 rand, it's used for food, it's used for electricity, it's stimulating macroeconomies, those local economies. It's providing essential resources for basic needs for the vulnerable, the most vulnerable, especially because many of those are black women who are unable to find employment due to the structured unemployment and also sometimes, and in some instances, caregiving responsibilities. So let's just be aware of the kind of assistance this grant gives to families. And research has been done. I think the Black Sash, one of the organizations that have looked into this, research has been done that looks at the impact this has had. Obed, you are in Winchester. You want to talk about Trump. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Clement. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm all right. Clement, I want to look at this from a different perspective. I don't believe that this issue is non-negotiable. It can still be negotiated, but I think we are looking at it from a wrong angle. Now, the problem is not Trump, and that's what we're not getting. The problem here is Elon Musk. I'm very much alive on Twitter, and I do follow Elon Musk. And if you do follow him, you see what he tweets. And when you see what he tweets, you will be able to put one and two together. Last time he tweeted and said that he was refused entry, I mean, that's the Starlink, into South Africa because he's white. Okay? Now, you know how much Trump trusted Elon Musk. And whatever he tells him goes. Trump have no idea, have no clue what is going on in South Africa. He's been fed some lies, and we know from whom. So, at the end of the day, I'm going to predict to you how this is going to end. It's going to be a question of South Africa giving something, okay, and then things will go back to normal. These guys are businessmen. They want South Africa to do something. And this is why negotiation is very, very important. And I believe that somebody like Becky, with other people, can go and negotiate and find out exactly what America wants. It's not about land or what have you. A land is just a booby trap, something they are using to get to what they want. That's my take.
That's an interesting take, Obed. Thank you for that. You've just made me think about what we're willing to give up. What do you think? What do you think in those negotiations would make sense for South Africa to give up without compromising ourselves? Do you give up our transformation policies? Because that's what Elon and Trump don't want. Do you give up the expropriation act now? Because that's what they don't want. So what do we give up without compromising ourselves?
Okay, what you give up is Starlink wants a take in South African market. And they are thinking that companies like Vodacom and MTN are into monopoly. They don't want Starlink in. And, Elon Musk doesn't want to go the route of the 30%, BEE something. He just wants a clear route. This is my take and my prediction.
Yeah. Obed, thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's quite an interesting opinion there. I wonder where you stand on it. What do we do? Right? What do you do? Because even Thabo Mbeki says our problems are not going to be resolved by or in the US. Our internal issues about policies, are they working? Are they not? Are they race-based? Are they not? Those are challenges we're going to resolve ourselves here. What is it that we must be prepared to give up? Because Obed says these are businessmen. In any negotiation, you've got to give them something. What do we give them without compromising our sovereignty? Peter, you are in Fouriersburg. Good morning.
Fouriersburg, yes, Clement.
Sure.
How are you?
Sharp, man. Go ahead.
Let me get to the point, Clement. The previous call, I think, said most of the stuff I wanted to say, Clement. Clement, at this stage, it is all hands on deck. Okay? We need to get whoever can go to the US and put the context on the current situation, Clement. Trump is a mad guy. I mean, look at, if you don't have the strength, forget even thinking that you can talk to Trump. We must get over the legacy of the former President Mandela. Yes, we achieved a lot, but that era is gone, Clement. We're dealing with a madman. We must humble ourselves and go and put the context, which at the end, Clement, will save us from the management of the ANC of the country, Clement.
All right.
So there's a good upside in terms of what's happening now.
Peter in Fouriersburg, thank you for your contribution. It's 4 minutes before 10.
You're with Clement Maniatela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 10 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the second hour of the Clement Maniatela Show. Thank you for your contribution on the 702 open line this morning. You've really made me think about some things I wasn't thinking about, like sending former President Thabo Mbeki as the lead, right? Someone who's leading the envoys from South Africa. I didn't think about that. But the question I'm still asking you is, what difference is that going to make? Because it's not so much who you're sending, it's who are you negotiating with on the other side, I would argue. Something else you've made me think about this morning is, what are we willing to give up? We're dealing with businessmen here. During those negotiations, if they do ever happen, because for some reason officials from the Trump administration are cool to meet with AfriForum, they're cool to meet with people like, or parties like the Democratic Alliance. We still don't have a date. We still don't know when the envoys that President Cyril Ramaphosa said he'll be sending will be leaving for the US. So when those negotiations, or if those negotiations happen, what are we prepared to give up? What are we prepared to say, okay, fine, this is the concession we're making. And whatever it is, it cannot impact on our sovereignty as a country. Do you give up the transformation policies because they don't like that? Do you give up the Expropriation Act because they don't like that? What do you do? Do you give up your fight in the ICJ? In the ICC against Israel because they don't like that? Huh? What do you do?
Hi, Clem, Tato. Do you think it's a coincidence that Trump met Netanyahu and the next day he started this disinformation campaign? And America has enough spooks in this country who report to someone back home. If there were land confiscations or whatever else, I'm certain there would have been a file on his desk at the Oval Office to that effect. There are enough spooks here to report back home and say, no, actually, this is what is happening in that country. And I can tell you right now, if we needed to give anything up, it'll probably be withdraw your case from the ICJ. I can bet you any amount of money. This has everything to do with the ICJ and nothing to do with Afrikaner people. It's my humble opinion.
That's a very tough one. What do we do? Are we willing to give up? Is government willing to give up on its fight for the Palestinians because they have to think about their interests? Give up their ICJ case. And then maybe Trump is going to be willing to sit down and negotiate with you and maybe withdraw some of the decisions that have been taken, including the one about cutting all federal funding. What do we do? What should we be willing to give up that doesn't compromise on our sovereignty? You can weigh in on that on 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702.
Hi, Clement. I think for Trump, it's beyond just the not willing to listen. There's a capacity issue. I don't think he has the capacity to comprehend what that is that we are wanting to achieve. Two, he comes from that community of terminally ill, racist people, and he's trying to basically cleanse the planet and make it theirs. So really, I think we can continue to try and be cordial and be professional with America. Where I am right now is we should really be sort of restructuring our lives differently and away from the West. It is time. Tulane from Randburg.
Hi, Clement. This is Cyril. I was going to suggest that South Africa should use America's friends like the UK to pave the way for them, but that will be seen as cowardice, I think there's just much just brave it and yeah, it's the same as when you with one of your family members you don't see eye to eye. You engage him or her until she tells that in your face she doesn't want to talk to you. That's it.
Hi, Limit. I don't think Donald Trump will listen to anybody from Africa. I mean, take a look, the whole Europe. They're bumping heads all over the place. Like he's happy. Because, I don't know, man. I thought the guy, actually, first time I even wrote something on Twitter, I thought maybe, everything's going to be smooth, everything's going to be good. But right now, everybody's all over the place. People the countries, they are running all over like rats. You understand what I'm saying? So he's not going to listen to the old man, believe me.
Yeah, listen, I'm also not convinced that that's going to make a huge difference.